Okay, so this is the second part of A1, and it's all about knowledge. So, knowledge of sports characteristics. A coach must have an understanding of the three different components used by sports performers: technical, tactical, and fitness. Technical is all about the way an athlete performs a skill. Coaches must have a clear understanding of the different technical requirements of the sport they are coaching, and this enables them to assess the ability of their athletes, spotting areas of development. For example, a coach assessing the body shape of a performer when striking a forehand in tennis and correcting any issues on technique. Next, we have tactical. This is tactics and strategies a player can use in a sport to be able to win. So the coach must be up to date with the rules and regulations relating to the sport, and this helps the coach develop athletes' understanding of applying tactics in a competitive environment. For example, applying an offside trap in football requires the coach to teach the process using repetition in training and developing sports performers' knowledge on when to apply this technique. Finally, we have fitness. This refers to the physical ability to meet demands of the sport. The coach must know and understand the components of fitness required within the sport and be able to develop sports performance fitness using specific components and training methods. So, for example, ensuring a long distance runner has the ability to maintain good pace throughout a cross country event, they would require the coach to design a training session best suited for better development of running techniques for long distance runners. Okay, so now we're going to go into a bit more detail into each characteristic. So we have the knowledge of techniques. When learning skills and techniques, sports performers require progressive challenges, often broken down into smaller phases of a complete skill. A coach would introduce a skill to a sports performer by demonstration and/or explanation, then letting performers attempt the skill. After observation, the coach should consider the most appropriate method of teaching the correct technical application of the skill. So, technique refers to the way an athlete produces a skill, and there are several technique models on how to execute a skill. So, for example, in high jump, there are several ways you can throw yourself and your body over the bar, and different techniques on how to do that. Or another example is a backhand in tennis can be performed with one hand or two hand, but they still have the same outcome. So there's different types of learning techniques. You have whole and part learning, chaining, which is also known as the progressive part, and shaping. So whole and part learning is where a skill is broken down into individual segments to make it easier for struggling performers. Once each stage has been performed, the athlete attempts the whole movement. For example, shooting a basketball can be broken down into stages, starting with practicing correct technique on how to hold the ball, working all the way up to the execution of a three-throw shot with good technique. Next, we have chaining. Chaining is also known as the progressive part and is suitable when a skill is more complex and can be broken down into individual segments. The coach would use demonstrations to show the performer the whole skill. When breaking it down into chain or subparts, the coach would again use demonstrations and once the performers have attempted all of the different subparts, they can link them like a chain, creating the whole skill from the sequence of subparts. For example, in gymnastics, teaching a round-off backflip would incorporate learning both the round-off and the backflip as individual skills and chaining them together into the whole skill. Finally, we have shaping. When a coach simplifies the skill, adding more complicated techniques as the performer improves. It's also known as breaking skills down because it can't work. You can't break the skill down as it won't work because it's performed at as high speed. So an example of this would be a forward somersault in gymnastics because it's too complicated to chain. Therefore, you learn a forward roll, progressing it to an assisted forward somersault, and then the performer is comfortable and they can attempt the flip without assistance. knowledge of tactics. So tactical knowledge of sports performance enables a coach to apply strategies to overcome the strengths or capitalize the weaknesses of the opponent. To achieve this, a coach must analyze the performance of athletes and the performance of opponents to apply the most effective and necessary tactics to gain a competitive advantage. Training sessions provide an environment for athletes to learn new tactics and implement them without significant risk. During training, most coaches use different situations where tactics can be tested. For example, competitive situations and conditioned practice. When looking at competitive situations, you're mimicking real-life competitive events, always following specific rules and regulations of that particular sport. These sorts of drills are often applied to strengthen individual components of performance. For example, attack v defence in football, where the defensive side are required to apply an offside trap effectively so the defence gain a free kick and stop the attack. We also have conditioned practice, which is like practicing a line out in rugby and the movement of the ball back into attacking play. The coach would split the team into attack v defence again, practicing different tactical scenarios. When looking at correct tactical models of different sports, the coach must successfully lay out all strategies of how they propose to use and develop this tactic. For example, when analysing performance, a coach must watch all the players and opponents, then decide on the correct strategies or tactics to apply. This could be to overcome or capitalise on opponents. However, this can only be applied when the correct training has been delivered to players like conditioned practice or competitive situations. Once developed and solidified on the training ground, a coach can go out, select and apply in a competitive environment. So, knowledge of components of fitness. A sports coach must understand the different components related to different sports. This enables a coach to develop a greater understanding of how to deliver different sessions and what relevant fitness aspects are important within training. Fitness can be grouped into two separate types: skill and health related fitness. There are multiple ways to identify whether athletes have adequate fitness levels, including tests and training methods, looking at both health and skill related fitness. For example, if you test your flexibility, this can be a passive stretch, requiring a push or a pull force to increase the range of movement at a joint. Reaching for an object like the wall is a good example, which is important in a sport like gymnastics, because you have to be flexible. Or another example, if you want to do training which concentrates on different areas of fitness like agility, speed and quickness, this could involve the use of obstacles like hurdles, cones and poles, which require multi-directional movements, which is important in a sport like rugby, specifically for a winger who needs these attributes.